Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Healing is War, where we explore the dark side, the shadows of starting your spiritual journey. On each
Mm.
episode, we delve into a topic you may face on your own healing or spiritual journey. This show is amazing. I already just called it amazing. That's what you got to do.
Yeah,
You got to claim it before it even happens. We have a special guest, Desiree DRA. You may hear me interchangeably calling her name Desiree or DRA.
yeah.
And the topic is Embody Ma'at. Let me tell you a little
Mm.
bit about DRA. I've known her for a while, sat in her classes. My boyfriend actually follows her husband Dream Wise. So them as a couple are inspiring to me on my healing journey. And one of the things I can say about D Ray, you are a healing coach. That's what you call
Mhm,
yourself in all
mhm,
realms. You're always speaking about the womb. You're always speaking about balance. You're always speaking about union with your oracle cards. I have some of your womb spray, just everything. It's all about the man and the woman, the masculine and the feminine coming together. First
mhm,
question. So we'll
mhm,
open up. What does this topic mean to you? Because I know in this season, this is what you have been speaking about, embodying
mhm.
Ma'at. What's the meaning? Where does it stem from?
Wow. The meaning of embodying Maya literally stems from the beginning of creation. To me, embodying my art is what we've come here to do. We see it in the reflection of the sun and the moon, light versus dark, masculine versus feminine, winter versus summer. We see this divine opposition that happens in balance and in harmony. And so, balancing or embodying Mayat is really about having inner harmony, inner balance, inner peace. It is embracing your light just as much as it is embracing your darkness. And I say that because this manifestation that we are experiencing as spiritual beings incarnated in this physical body, we are always experiencing light and dark, sun, moon, masculine, feminine. That's what our creation is built off of. And so to embody that means to integrate that within yourself. It means to really accept all aspects of you. And it's also being able to recognize that in this light, you're going to have some ups, you're going to have some downs. You're going to have qualities about yourself that are amazing, beautiful, wonderful, magnetic. And you're going to have things about yourself that are needing some love, some light. They're your challenges. It's the thorn in your side. And so embodying my art is just about embracing yourself holistically.
As you were speaking that, something came to my heart. It was the creation story. You know, we hear the creation story, whether it's in the Bible, the Quran, and it always gives us this thing where things were created in darkness. W-
Mm,
And and then it was like, but then God said, "Let there be light." So we have this dichotomy of there was the darkness and there was the light. What does all that mean in terms of what you're speaking about with the creation story, and especially
mm.
when it comes to who we're dealing with within, facing our own light and facing our own darkness?
Wow. I think one of the biggest phrases, or one of the most well-known phrases that comes to mind when you ask this question is, out of darkness comes light. And so, from the creation story to our personal life experiences, whenever we are in darkness, what we're actually talking about is the unknown, the subconscious mind, the womb. We are in a space of infinite creativity when we are in darkness. And when we give it structure, when we give it meaning, this is when we bring it to light, right? So, for example, if I experience a certain level of trauma, which I have, right? abandonment or rejection from my father, that can be looked at as darkness. In fact, it is darkness because there's a certain level of emotions that came with those experiences, certain behaviors manifested from those experiences. But as I sat in that darkness and decided that I was going to create a new story for myself, I was able to extract all of this healing, all of this power, all of this self love, self respect, and self honor. That is the light. And so to me, creation in itself is taking something that is in a state of pure potential and birthing it, right? Giving it meaning. And so it's chaos into order. And the example that I just gave about healing is how we do this every day. It's taking a situation that looks to be challenging, that looks to be adverse, and turning it into something amazing. We call that alchemy.
Yeah, you're speaking a good word there because a lot of people, that is a buzzword these days, alchemy.
Mhm. Mhm.
Everybody uses it. They use it, oh, you're an alchemist, or oh, I do food alchemy, how I turn this, my beans and franks into this fabulous meal. Like,
Right, right, right.
how can we, what are some practical steps? Because, of course, you spoke about your father and abandonment. I have a similar story. My parents split up when I was 5, and I felt lost, me and my
Mhm.
5 siblings. It's how do you really transition that? Because there are things happening every day, especially now in 2025, 2026. We're seeing all of these systems fall. When we chaos, literally, you spoke the word.
Yes, yes.
How do you turn the current chaos into a decision of, I'm going to create something. I'm going to create a business. I'm going to create a marriage because I know you can speak to that too. People like dissing on love. I'm like,
Hmm.
what are we doing? So can you give us some insight?
Yeah. Well, I grew up in the church, and so growing up Christian, I firmly believe the saying, all things are working together for my good. And so I've just chosen to let that always be my guiding light. And that's what alchemy is. It's taking the lump of coal and saying, this is going to work for my good no matter what. And so, though you are under pressure, though you are being challenged, though you are being forced to expand, you stay focused on the idea that you were made for a divine purpose and that you're not meant to exist in the darkness. You're not meant to only embody one frequency. You are meant to change, to transform, and to grow. So I think the first choice that has to be made is the choice to know and understand that there's better for your life. On the clock right now for me, I just saw 11:19 on 11:19. So I need to research what those numbers symbolize. But is it okay if I channel really quickly?
Do it. This is what you
Because that's
do.
what's happening,
This
right?
is what this is
So,
for.
yeah, of course. So, with it being 11:19 on 11:19, we're actually talking about 111 or 111 and a 9. And so that to me still feels like creation one being the beginning, right? The start. One is actually masculine energy. And then we have the 9, which symbolizes completion. So when we're talking about going from chaos to order, darkness to light, transforming your trauma into triumph, we're talking about completing a cycle that actually evolves us into who we are meant to be. The trials and the tribulations that we face, to me, they are a spark of light. To me, it is an activation. And I'm not saying this to romanticize trauma, right? I'm saying it so that women can start to understand that their experiences do not have to become their identity, that you can actually transform being a child that was once abandoned, rejected, and abused, and become a woman that is a leader, a teacher, a healer, or guide. But you wouldn't be that. I wouldn't exist in this place or be able to share this light if it were not for my darkness. So the first step is just knowing that you're not meant to stay in this place. You're meant to allow the darkness to transform you, to evolve you, and to expand you into a greater alignment with your higher self.
Okay. I gotta say that was just pure alignment because 1119 on, but you're exactly right. And when the alchemy too is just in what occurred. It was
Mm,
not by chance we saw 1119 in its
mm,
full representation of both the masculine and the feminine. The feminine, like literally, it's right there in our face. And
right, right.
sometimes, if we just get wrapped up in our darkness, in our
Mm.
story, and you're speaking specifically to women, this is men too,
Yes.
but
Oh,
women.
absolutely. Men too. All of us, human beings in this experience, you are meant to go on what they call your hero's journey. This is the story of all of our greatest teachers, right? From religious teachers like Jesus, Buddha, whatever, to historical people like Malcolm X or Martin Luther King or anybody, right? The process is to turn your lump of coal into a diamond, right? That's what we're here to do because it is through that alchemical process that we get closer to God and that we realize our God force and how intricately we are woven with this sacred energy. I just feel like if everything was always just like what's the think about it. What's the point of life if it is always just good, copacetic light?
I
They
wouldn't
say
want that.
even yeah, like how that's not even enjoyable. Again, it's not romanticizing trauma and doom and gloom, right? But it's understanding that when you're triggered, this is a moment of darkness. You're in a space of like, okay, I'm feeling something. It's just understanding that all of these experiences serve our highest good, no matter what it looks like.
Okay, I gotta I gotta ask you this questions because we've alluded to it. One of the things you mentioned earlier was your father and dealing with abandonment, and now
Mhm.
you alchemize that abandonment into a beautiful relationship. I would say,
Yeah,
how did
absolutely.
you, yeah, see, how did you create? Because I'm going to use your name, a version of your name is Desire. How did
Ah,
you turn that into fire and desire? How did you
ooh.
turn the abandonment into this loving relationship that for me and most people, it is fire and desire?
It is absolutely fire and desire because love is a flame, okay? It can get hot and heavy, but we also know that that flame can burn out, hence why so many people separate, divorce, and things of that nature. So when it comes to the fire, it's about how do you continue to pour fuel into that fire so that it continues to burn bright. How I turned my abandonment into love and just this beautiful sacred union. The very first thing that I had to realize is that in this human experience, love is all there is. It's what we are meant to experience, right? It's God made manifest. God is love. This is one of the things that I really believe. And love comes in many forms and facets. And so, what I didn't want to do was allow this wound, this heartbreak, this inner child, which is a word that we always speak. I didn't want to allow this to ruin my experience of love in the most sacred ways, right? And so I had to first acknowledge that, like, I deserve love. I am a creature of love. God is love, and love is supposed to be a part of my human experience. And then with that, I started to reflect on the love my father actually did give me. A lot of times when we experience trauma, we become over identified with that story. And so, what I've had to learn for myself is I had to take a step back and look at the full spectrum of my life. What times did my father show up? When I was with my father, how did that feel? Did I feel the joy? Did I feel the love? And I had to ask myself, which one am I going to allow to be the narrative that I project forward? Which one am I going to make my identity? The abandoned, rejected girl or the girl who recognized, okay, my father is only a human, right? He did not have the capacity, the insight. He didn't know how his results were going to impact me. He wasn't mindful of that, right? And he was also like 22, 23, 24, 25, very young. So, do I want to hold on to a narrative of being abandoned or rejected? Or do I want to look at the bigger picture? Do I want to put myself in my mother and my father's shoes? Do I want to understand that life is a learning process? And so that's what I chose for myself. I chose to focus on the good and I chose to become now accountable for how I show up. As a grown woman, I can't still blame my father for having trust issues or not being confident and certain in myself. I had to say, what changes am I going to make? And so those were the first two things. Recognizing that I am love and I'm worthy of God's love. But number two, just deciding I was not going to hold on to the story. It was no longer serving me. It was no longer serving me. And so I chose something different. And I entered a wormhole of healing and transformation. I looked at how has this abandonment impacted the way I think, impact the way that I feel about myself, and my overall self-image. And once I identified the things that didn't align what I wanted from me, and I started doing the transformation work and taking action on it, wow, love came in. And it wasn't easy. It didn't mean that the arguments or the shadow boxing went away, because it doesn't, but it becomes easier to overcome and manage when you are aware of your trauma and you've chosen not to exist from that identity.
What I can say is it's a choice. You just said you decided, do I be this D-Ray, little D-Ray who felt abandoned by my father, or do I be this embodied, gonna use the word, this woman who now knows that she is loved? I
Mm,
can choose either. And we know we actually have like I heard this the other day and I used to think, oh, that's false. We actually have 144 possibilities of things we can be. Like when we think about the
mm,
dimensions, people always talk about where you're elevating a fourth dimension, fifth dimension. I heard 144, and it makes sense in what you are just saying. Because
mm,
as a child, there are like 144 possibilities of where we could go. And even as we mature, we can choose. I don't need to choose to use you to be little D Ray. I don't need to choose to be little Elmira who was abandoned. I can
mm.
choose differently because there's all these possibilities. And
Wow.
that's embodying my odd to me. What do you say about the possibilities? Because especially with love, some people don't see the possibilities because they haven't seen
Mm.
it.
Right, right. You know, the possibilities are infinite. So let's just put that out there, right? We can't place God in a box, right? Like the energy and the sacredness of the divine is so expansive and unlimited. I mean, we know that. And so um, the possibilities are infinite. I think it's just about exposing yourself to new things. So, one of the things that I'm so proud about is that my husband and I have had the longest standing relationships in my entire family while raising children together.
Wow.
We've broken a code in my family. I want to say it's probably the same thing in his family too, with his mother and his brother. But I'm talking about from my father, my mother, and my grandparents, and even my great grandparents. My husband and I, we're going a long haul, but up until this point right now, we have 4 kids together and have been together going on 11 years.
Mm.
Nobody in my family, my immediate family, has done that. And so that's a possibility that in my younger years growing up, I didn't see. I didn't experience. All I experienced was drama, fighting and fussing, right? And so what I did do was expose myself to new possibilities and opportunities. So I had friends whose parents were married. They probably weren't perfect, but they were together, right? I always like to watch love movies and love shows. I still to this day, I love music, love songs, the neo soul, R&B genre. So I flooded myself through environment with the understanding and the idea that it was possible for me to have love, though I hadn't observed it. And though I had developed in my younger years this identity that didn't know if it was actually going to happen for me, right? Because I grew up not feeling like I was the prettiest girl in the class, right? I was always the tallest. And I always just had a different mindset and a different perspective. So I didn't know that if I was going to be able to connect with somebody on a deep level who found me attractive, who enjoyed my mentality, my quirks, and my differentness. But I just started to love myself. I ingratiated myself with love, with light, and in oneness. And it's happened. And what I will say about it is that it takes work. One of the possibilities is understanding that me and my husband, we may be going back and forth. I get to choose that this disagreement or this disruption can be mended, it could be
Mm.
healed, it could be restored, and it could actually support us in having an even deeper, bolder, fire, more spicy relationship. So it goes back to that idea of choice.
Yeah, the vision just came to me was like this springboard. You know, you said, let's say you're battling back and forth, and you may go into the depths. It means you can go that much higher on the
Absolutely.
trampoline, on the springboard, because you have faced those challenges. Okay, as you were talking, I think this is the time I got a burning question because
Okay,
I know you will give like an accurate, in-depth answer to this because it's something that came to mind. And if it's channeled into me, I got to ask it.
for
So
sure.
you are talking about self-love.
Hmm.
One of the things that came up to me just this morning about self-love was sensuality and masturbation and
Mm.
how it has been shamed as a form of self love, whereby we're now talking about alchemizing what you didn't see when you grew up into a loving relationship. How important is embracing your own sensuality, being comfortable with like touching yourself, getting in touch with, and I'm speaking to the women, knowing what are your breasts like? What is your booty like? What is your, because I can say that's something I was shameful for. And it's in preparation for this show, D Ray, it came up. I remember
Mm.
being sensual at the age of 11. There goes that
Mm.
number again.
Mhm,
We've been
mhm,
together 11 years. We saw the 1119.
mhm, mhm,
What do you say to the women who have defined their sexuality to the outside, to a man, to other people, whereas they have not been sensual with themselves, with their womb, with
mm.
anything?
Yeah. Goes back to embodying Ma'at holistically because women who deny themselves their own sensuality and sexuality are also denied with their masculine counterpart. You're still not experiencing the level of pleasure and healthy love making, orgasm, ecstasy that you're supposed to experience if you haven't developed it for yourself first. So, to me, if a woman has neglected nurturing herself, feeling herself, exploring herself, there's no way that she can educate her man on how to serve her in the way that she needs for her to experience the ultimate pleasure. So, when it comes down to self care, sensuality, touching yourself, feeling yourself, I am 100% an advocate for it. And I will also say, this started for me from a traumatic place. When I was a kid, I was exposed to masturbation and sex, porn to be specific, from a childhood friend of mine, right? I had a childhood friend. Every time I would go to her house, she would pull out all the flicks that her mother and father had, and we would play them. And she would show me all of these different things. Yeah, Desiree, this is how you do this is how you do that. I mean, we were young. And what it did for a long time was kind of desensitized me to the sacredness of sex because it wasn't introduced to me in this sacred and divine way. It was kind of like my friend, just like, this is what my mama didn't be having, this is what I seen them do, whatever. And so at first, I carried a lot of shame surrounding that being my childhood experience and surrounding that being my introduction to sexuality. But again, being the alchemist, it put me a step ahead in my womb healing because I had already been used to touching myself, feeling myself, and having this certain level of intimacy with myself. It was just not from the highest form of love. So I had to do the alchemy and start communicating to my womb, communicating to my body, and restoring the sacredness of sexuality. So many women just have to go through the process of the alchemy. And I can tell you right now, as a person who has taught many womb classes and will continue to teach the power of the womb, so many women are afraid of themselves. They are. So
Really?
I have, yes. So I have this specific ritual that I did with myself in order to reactivate the sacredness of my womb and my sexuality and sensuality. And it's actually called Yoni gazing. And all you do is grab a mirror, put it in between your legs while you are unclothed, and look into your vagina. Look at your entire feminine structure, the yoni. And so when I first did this, it was very uncomfortable. It was very hard. Multiple times I've cried and I've just, all of these emotions were coming up through just looking at my vagina. But when I invited so many other women to try it because it was so liberating and so healing and so forgiving, my womb was like, girl, I know all of that happened in your childhood. I know the abandonment, the rejection maybe had you in these relationships that did not serve your highest good, but you are still powerful and divine. You are still sacred. This is still a sacred womb that brings forth life. But when I invited other women to do it, I got a lot of pushback. Oh no, I just couldn't do that. No, that was just too much for me. I don't think I need to do that.
Oh,
All of that resistance and rejection to me just symbolized that women, these particular women, were not in a space where they were able to face one of the most sacred parts of their bodies. They weren't ready for what would be revealed through that level of care, aspiration, and nurturance. And so women have to get out of the fear of themselves and what they may discover by exploring themselves on a deeper, sensual, and sacred and sexual way.
Yeah, because based on that, what did some of the women did actually discover?
So the women that refused to do it, but that came into the space open, were like, wow, the fact that I was afraid to even do it does say a lot, and I need to dive deeper into this. The women that did have the boldness and the audacity to look at their vagina felt this meditative calm come over them. They felt this safety come over them. Why does that even happen? When we look at the physical nature of the womb and the fact that it is the middle point between heaven and earth, literally. When children are born, they come from the spirit and enter into your womb, right? Your womb goes from being empty, and I don't want to say empty like it's lacking anything. Your womb goes from being full of potential to now acting on that potential while you're carrying a child, right? And then that child has to be birthed into the physical realm. So it goes from spirit to physical by way of the womb. So when you have that awareness and you understand that your womb is literally a portal and you decide that you're going to meditate with it, that you are going to reflect on it, and that you are going to allow whatever thoughts and emotions come up in this observation, you are opening yourself up to just connecting with the divine. You are literally entering a portal, and so much gets revealed in that space. So many women have healed abuse that they've experienced. I myself have been able to heal shame that was connected to my womb. I was able to actually transform the cells of my womb to experience more pleasure, more excitement. I mean, it just changes everything.
Yeah, because what you were saying to the women who were resistant, they didn't want to give attention to it because what we give attention
Mm.
to, it can change, it can shift, it can grow. We can change our DNA. We've been talking about alchemy. That's part of embodying Ma'at. Because sometimes when people hear Ma'at, they think of, oh, my feather, my heart needs to be light as the feather, and that's the only thing
Yeah.
that comes to mind. See, you got the feather
Yeah.
there. What kind of feather
Yeah.
is that?
Girl, it is some sort of owl or like
Okay.
hawk. It's a big bird. I don't know. I found it months ago. I couldn't know for sure. I just know it's a big bird, hence the size. So beautiful. Found it in my backyard.
See, the
Mhm.
messages always show up when we need them. But yeah, it's
Absolutely.
we're afraid to put the attention because when we give attention to that darkness, literally the womb, the yoni gazing is looking into the darkness, looking into the abyss. You said it.
Absolutely.
This is the connection to the divine. This is connection to source, the everything, the great beyond.
Yeah.
Looking into that darkness just
Scary.
opens up so much. It's scary, yeah.
It is scary. It is scary, but it's so necessary. Going back to the very beginning, out of darkness comes light. Our womb is a storehouse. It's directly connected to our hearts and to our subconscious mind, right? And so this is why when women feel love, they're more prone to open up their wombs and give their bodies because their heart has been impacted in such a way. So the womb, it holds on to everything. So when you look at your womb, when you look at your yoni, it starts to talk. It starts to communicate. And this communication, it comes up in you. You'll start to have certain thoughts, certain feelings. I even saw visions come across, my mind or my divine mind out of nowhere, just from yoni gazing. I would just see something and be like, oh my God. But what's being revealed is the answer to the questions that I'm having on a spiritual level about what it is I'm trying to birth. So if you're trying to birth healing and you do some yoni gazing, you might start to see the specific traumas or the thought processes or the emotions or the people that are impacting that healing from taking place.
Mm,
Working with the womb is such a magical and divine practice, and it requires a certain level of vulnerability and openness. And I think the it's been made taboo for women to nurture their wombs and to understand their cycles and to explore their pleasure. Like that's like a taboo thing, which is why when I shared the Yoni gazing, these women were like, "What? You're telling us to do what?" Right? But it is in these things that are taboo or that are unfamiliar or that are different where you become aware of a heightened level of consciousness or just a download or revelation that your spirit team has been trying to give you, but
right.
you weren't able to receive through the basic mediums, right? Through the book or through talking to someone, doing something introspective and receiving the answer from your own divine mind, from your heart, from your womb. That's where the next level transformation comes from.
Yeah, it comes from the womb. It comes from the
Mm,
womb, everybody. I want to thank you because we're about to close out, and every at the end, I always share some soul work. I call it, that's our version of homework. And
hmm
so I'm going to have you add to the work. This is what I collected so far.
hmm
Everybody's soul work, listen up because y'all know I'm a teacher. So I got to give y'all the homework.
Give
Number
us the soul
one,
word.
yeah, number one, do your yoni gazing, women. No matter how challenging it may be, you may be resistant the first time, do that gazing. Number two, alchemize. Find something from this week that you saw as a dark spot. It could be my paycheck was $200 less than it was supposed to be. How can you transition that into the light? Find something you can transition into the light. And then, thirdly, choose differently. Make a decision, make a choice to nurture yourself. And that all rolls back to number one. What would you add to this soul work, D Ray?
You know, I'm hearing a song. It goes like, I choose to be the best that I can be. I choose. That's India.Arie. I mean, you already said
Oh,
choose, but I'm hearing the song, so I'll tell y'all the song too. I Choose by India.Arie. I definitely recommend listening to that, ladies and gentlemen, if you're in a space where you're like, how do I move forward? How do I choose something different? How do I make a new decision? Play that song on repeat. This is one of the practices that I did that helped me to get out of this repetitive cycle of not being the woman that I desire to be. And so as I listened to that song, it just filled my spirit with the understanding that I get to choose to be the best version of myself at any given moment. It may not have started out great this morning. I actually cried this morning, right? A good cry, a healing cry.
yeah.
But somebody else may look at that like, I'm freaking out. I'm experiencing emotion. So I chose from that experience to let this be a catalyst for all the wonderful and beautiful things that are happening in my life. And so that's the last thing that I will give, even though you already said it. I want us to choose moment by moment. In any given moment, you have the right to choose how are you going to perceive? How are you going to feel? How are you going to act? Is it in alignment with your Ma'at?
Mm,
And
that's deep.
if it is, I say congratulate yourself. Give yourself a hug. Cheer yourself on. Be proud of you. If it's not, this is where you become the alchemist. Okay, what is the next best choice that I can make? Can I take some deep breaths? Can I go for a run? What can I do right now to be better?
Right. It's choosing. And that song, India.Arie, she is phenomenal. I saw her live in concert several years
Wow.
ago in Nashville. It was wonderful.
Wow.
Because one of the things with that song, you can be doing the nurturing as you're listening to the song. I
Absolutely.
choose. Yeah, like make it a whole experience. Like this is what we do.
Whole, this is what we do. This is what we do. We we restore ourselves. We nourish ourselves. We do whatever it is we need to do to come back into balance and harmony. It's not the denial that things are happening in life. The check is short, the bills are due, the is not feeling the best, the relationship, those things are part of the human experience. But are you going to stay in that space and allow that to become your identity, your personality, your point of view, the way that you live? Or do you choose to find the silver lining? Do you choose to find the light in the darkness? That is literally the embodiment of Ma'at. Do you choose to keep your heart light when the world or situations and circumstances keep trying to throw heaviness on you? I choose.
Simply put, everybody, I choose. Remember, your soul is calling you to greatness. Be a soldier. You are ready for war.
Mm.
I also want to say, as we close out today, this episode is brought to you by Authentic ZQ Jewelry. Zelda made these beautiful earrings. You can find her on Instagram under Authentic ZQ Jewelry. This has been Healing is War. I thank my guest, DRA. Go out, embody Ma'at, and we will see you next time. Goodbye, everyone.
Peace.